The business end of the season is here, just 3 days out from the start of the 2024 AFL Finals Series. We dissect all 4 games, taking a look at the strengths of each team, plus who are the X factors who will shape September. This is Access All Areas, thanks to Crypto.com. It's September, spring is here, and that means just one thing. Finals footy. Damian, Barrett and Matthew Lloyd are with me. It's like Christmas week for me, Damo.
It is that. It's a bit of a calm before storm feel of the weekend just gone, wasn't it? As we await these 4 intriguing matches which are about to unfold.
They certainly are. Lloydie, very exciting.
It is exciting. I'm with you, Nat. I think it's probably my favourite week of the finals, aside from the grand final itself. So it always sets up. Whoever can win those qualifiers really sets you up.
You couldn't be confident on any of those numbers. We're going to go through them, aren't we, Nat, are we? But there's no confidence as we talk on this Monday morning, in my selections anyway, that you're about to get.
Well, you're the star tipster here, and if you do a dead cert competition, I don't know which game would actually be a dead certainty at this point. It's going to be very, very tough. Let's get straight into it. We're going to start Thursday night football. Port Adelaide taking on Geelong, and the Power have won their last 6 games, Lloydie, and their midfield. Geez, that's a big strength, isn't it?
Yeah, they are flying. I'm a big Kenny Hinkley fan, so I hope he can have a successful final series. And he's got to win his first final. To get through to a home prelim would be unbelievable for Port Adelaide. And look at the numbers. Number 1 from score from stoppage, Port Adelaide this year. Zach Butters is the best player in that midfield. Jason Horne-Francis not far behind. Ollie Wines is having a good year. Good year. Back to his best. Connor Rosie's the one that isn't quite travelling as well as the others, Damo.
Do you think he's injured?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. Even Jordan Sweet's done a really good job keeping Ivan Soto out of the team, and then you've got Willem Drew, who is the shutdown player in that midfield and does a really good job. So that's where the strength lies over a Geelong team that, Dangerfield aside, is probably struggling a little bit through that midfield. Yeah.
I'm looking for an X factor, Damo, someone who can be a game changer.
Well, Lloyd, just look at the attack side of the equation. I'll go the defensive side, Nat, with Aliir. I felt he had an All-Australian type of year. He's already been that before. He wasn't this year, but he has been able to control a lot of play down there, and he's going to have a massive task on Jeremy Cameron. I know that negating Cameron Lordo is an all-of-team situation in 2024, but he's still going to need to be in the right spots when Cameron surges forward, isn't he? And he does, to me, loom as arguably the key of the game.
They were very well planned, Port Adelaide. I think they were the first side that shut down Tom Stewart really well, so that's going to be another fascinating one with McEntee, normally the man that gets him.
Damo, how much will it hurt no Dan Houston and Kane Farrell as well?
I think Farrell is an equal loss to Dan Houston. Dan Houston's now a 2-time All-Australian, most recently on the week just gone. But Farrell's performance in the last game, and I think over the whole of the season, his precise kicking, it's a huge loss to have both of them out going into this period of the season. All
right, let's look at the Cats now. And Lloydie, biggest strength for you?
Well, it's off the back of what you just touched on. Farrell and Houston not playing, it's the small forwards. So, I think finals time, tall forwards don't dominate like we hope. It comes from often the smalls. We saw, obviously, Bobby Hill win the Norm Smith last year. It's these guys, there's so many of them. Dempsey, Myers, Close, Stengel. So there's 4 of them. So this is, for me, where the strength lies. Without Farrell and Houston,
and
it's
even
a real
Manor
worry.
coming into that mix now too, isn't he? He's been really good since he came in.
Yeah, he's a tackling machine. So that's where the strength lies for Geelong.
Picking an X factor for Geelong might be a bit tricky because there's so many good players.
Well, already mentioned the midfield, and Dangerfield is still the dominant and most important player in that. But this guy is near equal. Max Holmes, I'm referring to. Again, I've talked about players who I feel should have been All-Australian, and I think he is another one of those. That the run he gives them. Look, they thought they were getting an athlete, or there was a theory they were getting an athlete who might become a footballer. He's a footballer every bit as much as he is an athlete, and that's what they love about him. And he's tough, he's creative, he's smart. And here's the other one, obviously. This is the guy who, Jeremy Cameron, who, since Tom Hawkins went down, has taken his own game this season to another level. And I love the fact he gets up the ground and is surging forward, and he's coming in hard off a 9-goal performance in the last game.
So you mentioned Tom Hawkins there, Lloydie. My question is to you, what are you doing? Because he is available with that foot injury. We haven't seen him since round 15. Do you play him or Shannon Neal?
It's a no for me, Shannon Neal.
Yeah. I'd take him out of all considerations for the entire series. And I know that sounds really hard and there's no romance attached to that, Nat, but to me they've been far better once he went out.
What about Sam de Koning as well? Because we haven't seen him for a few weeks. He's had knee surgery, but he played in the VFL at the weekend in the ruck. What do you think?
I think Reece Stanley will get the nod first up. He may be considered beyond that point. And is there a role for him, Lordo, in the back line? I'm not convinced there is right now. And again, that's hard to say given what he did in 2022 as a key member of that back line in a premiership team.
All right, time now to get our tips for this game. Lloydie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, Port for me at home.
I'm warming to the Cats.
I mean, you're drinking the Kool-Aid all season, so you kind of have to
I've
stick
had
with
good
that.
reason to it. It's been a good tasting drinking that, and I think by the time this game comes around and our tips go in officially, I think I will be.
What about you, Nat?
Cats for me at this point. Okay, Friday night footy, MCG. It's the Western Bulldogs up against the Hawks. Probably two of the informed teams at the moment. We'll start by looking at the Bulldogs, and I'm pretty sure I know what your strength is going to be.
Yeah, it is the bigs, and it's more the strength because of what Hawthorn have got down there. So it's the only real hole in Hawthorn's team. It's why they've got Barrett and Battle joining the club next year, is because poor Sam Frost has had to do all the big jobs. Jack Scrimshaw's got to be number 2. So
Sicily with a bung shoulder.
Sicily with a bung shoulder. So I just think they're the number 1 side for getting the ball inside 50. They're the number 1 marking side in the competition. So I just think one of them's going to get off the chain. I think one of them's going to kick you 5 in my opinion.
Is it as simple as Hawthorn shutting these guys down, they win, Lotto? Or is that just too simplistic a way of looking at a very complex game?
I think it's the midfield. Hawthorn's midfield has to win. Like I think, in terms of that, the Doggies' midfield can get away with it, but the Hawks have to dominate the midfield to protect this defence away from those bigs.
And that might be tough without Will Day. We will get to that in just a moment. I want your X factor, because at the forward line, there's lots of X factor. Outside of that, where you're looking.
Look, I've gone maybe outside the obvious here, Nat, in nominating Bailey Dale, who had a slow start to the season, but I think ended up playing as well as he's ever played. And there was a reality check or a wake-up call, whatever phrase you want to use, the way Luke Beveridge used him as a sub in one of those early games. But his kicking is still as good as ever. His creativity, and he's just so important to them, and has been a key member of what they've been about in the back half of the year.
All right, looking at Hawthorn now, what's their strength?
I just love the connection of what they're doing. So it starts with, obviously, their midfield's been dominant, and so we want to put a clip in of both Newcombe and Warple, and I think Nash is underrated as well through that midfield. But it's in their entries in. This is the toughest kick inside 50. The toughest kick of the whole game is your last kick inside forward 50, where a lot of teams break down, and the way they're using the footy and connecting with each other. I think they're hard to plan for, because you just don't know where the ball's going to. They have so many players who have kicked 20 goals plus. So they don't rely on anybody. Obviously, Cal Shadir, Jack Gunston, all the smalls, McDonald, Ginnivan. It's just a fantastic forward line mix.
Do you think they can win without Will Day in that midfield?
I think they can, yeah. I know he started the improvement when he came back in, but yes, I still think they can win without him.
X factor, there's plenty in that forward line.
Oh, there are, Nat, but the people who get to the forward line players are the keys in my eyes. And one of them's Josh Weddle. I know you've got a big side. Look, to do what he's done this year at such an early stage of a career that's going to be very, very, very good, and already is very good. I love how he kicks goals off a half-back flank. I love how he sets up play. I love how you do not even question one part of his courage. We shouldn't have anyway, but we did for whatever reasons. He's openly addressed that publicly, and he's actually said he's become better for it. But there's not many players who can do everything that he does at the moment.
Might be the modern-day Cooter by the end of it. Just the athleticism. Probably can run more endurance than Cooter, but in terms of his athleticism and ability to play anywhere, I can't wait to see him on the big stage.
Might run for Lord Mayor too, down the
Now, the fact that this game is at the MCG, do you think that holds any weight to Hawthorn? Because the Bulldogs have only played there twice this year. They lost to the Demons, and then they beat the Tigers. So they don't play there often, Lloydie.
Certainly helps the Hawks.
Yeah, I think it helps. And they've played 3 matches, haven't they, in front of 90,000 or thereabouts people. The Dogs haven't had that experience this year. I still think, though, Nat, when it comes to a tip, those 3 guys that Lloydie focused on off the very top, the tools, are going to be the reason just the Dogs get the job done.
So Dogs for you?
Yeah, Dogs as well.
Dogs for me.
Just. Dogs for you?
Yes, I'm very pessimistic when it comes to these things. OK, let's take a look at Saturday afternoon footy, and it is the Sydney Swans and the GWS Giants, the minor premiers, of course. 3:20, a Sydney derby, and their biggest strength, Lloydie. What is it?
It's stating the obvious here. Heaney, Warner and Goulden. It's just that they've kicked 85 goals between them. And look at the running. Like, this is Goulden from half back. So who do you stop? So we're talking about Toby Bedford. What does he do? Who's he go to? And I think it's Chad Warner, Damo's man. I think that's who you go to. Heaney's that type of player. I don't think he suits Bedford. Just because of his size and his power, but I think Warner is a similar shape. Not a big man, Chad Warner, so I think Bedford, that's where the matchup should go. But they're the 3 you've got to stop.
Well, that's what they did in round 15. An X factor for the Swans.
Well, we talk about a big 3. There's actually a big 4, and the 4th member is Nick Blakey.
Oh, the lizard.
Yeah, he again has had another outstanding season, and he was All-Australian, deservedly so. A bit like Weddle, he can kick goals off a half-back flank, but he can play tall, he can play small, he can fit whatever hole that they've got down back. And equally, no matter what role he's got, he's still running like we're seeing on screen here, where he's waiting for that ball over the top, having already set up the play to begin the process. So I think he's an extraordinary player, and I think he is an equal to those other three players you just mentioned.
There's a bit of a selection squeeze, so we believe Papley could be back from an ankle and Justin McInerney back from a knee. Of course, Heaney and Tom McCutcheon to come back into the side as well. Lloydie, that forward line, it's shaping up well if Papley is able to come back in.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, I think, for the Sydney Swans, but they all should play those players.
All right, let's look at the Giants, a strength for theirs.
Well, I want to put Jack Buckley's, he's a giant killer. That's what he is, Jack Buckley. And here's his numbers since round 14. Sam Taylor's been out. He's had some injuries, Sam Taylor, and this is the numbers. I'll never forget the Charlie Curnow one where that goal came in the last minute or two. He punched the ground because he's the ultimate competitor. And there's too many backmen in this game who don't defend the right way. They want to just mark the footy and win possession and intercept. That's not how defence is, and I'm still old school in that regard, and that's what Buckley and Taylor do really well. They hate having a kick on them, and they can intercept marks. So it's going to be a real challenge, and it puts so much pressure on those big three, and it puts pressure on Papley to score goals because Amadi, McLean and McDonald are going to struggle against those two.
Lucky Jack Buckley didn't end up going to Paris then to watch his girlfriend at the Olympics. And the Giants are going to get back a few. Brent Daniels, Connor Stone, Toby Bedford, as we mentioned. Lockie Ash comes back from suspension. And then you've got Riccardi and Isaac Cumming, who are also available. Damo, looking at this Giants outfit, there's a lot of X factor. Where are you going for
I'm going for one who's not as explosive as most in this team, but it's Kieran Briggs in the ruck. We saw in the last game he really struggled with a banged up shoulder in a really painful way. But his role and his job against Brodie Grundy will ultimately shape this game. We know what we get with him. We know we get from both players there. But Briggs is just so important to their structure. And if he's not at least negating or at least splitting those contests with Grundy, it's going to be nigh on impossible for the Giants in my eyes.
All right, a tip from you?
I'm confident on the Swans, as weird as that sounds, in this particular game.
Yeah, if that was your dead certainty, that's what you would
I would, if you forced me to make it a dead certainty, I would say the Swans, yes.
That's the one that I'm most 50-50 about, Lloyd.
No, I think they've been the best side all year and win at the SCG.
I'm going to say the Giants. I reckon they're pretty confident. All right, the Gabba, Saturday night, an elimination final. It is the Brisbane Lions and Carlton. We know what happened back in opening round. The Blues storming back to win by a point, and Harry Mackay was the hero there. But let's take a look at the Lions and their biggest strengths.
No excuses for the Brisbane Lions. I want to put up my A-graders who have A-grade talent. I'm saying they don't perform all the time like A-graders, and Eric Hipwood is one of those players that doesn't always get it done, and either does Zach Bailey this year. But these guys, to me, are all Australian players throughout their career. They should be, based on their talent. And that's more than half their side who I believe are A-grade players, and it's just the connection that they lack. So this is good connection where it's team first. So if they're willing to care and share for each other amongst this talent, with Carlton having to bring in so many players who are unsettled, have to get their mojo back of playing together, they shouldn't be losing this to Brisbane Lions, in my opinion, based on what they have there at the Gabba.
They've got to put behind them, don't they, the fact they've missed out on a doubles chance with those losses in rounds, or the second last and third last matches. But I'm with you, they have got no reason to lose this game.
Unless they can't kick goals, which has been an issue for them, as we know, the last month or so. An X factor for the Lions, Damo.
Yeah, well, one of these names was on Lloyd's list of A-graders in Cam Rayner, and the other one is Kai Loman. I love what he's done. He's brought an energy to this team, Kai Loman, when they needed it at the start of the year when they were going badly.
It's contagious, isn't
it? It is, yeah. And look, some people may say that he's a bit selfish at times. I like that about him. In fact, I think there should be more of it. And Rayner, we have seen step up this year in key moments. That was still the best game of the home race season in my eyes. That goal he just kicked there against the Swans there at the Gabba on a really hot day, and he did it again in quick succession. So they're the two that, to me, have to perform, not just in this first week, and if they get through beyond that.
Lloydie, you touted it, but Carlton could make up to 8 changes, which is so incredible for this elimination final. Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay are definitely coming back into the side. Sam Doherty, incredible to think that after 183 days and after doing his ACL, he could be walking out there on the footy field. Tom De Koning, Martin and Chera may be less likely. McGovern and Williams, I think, are more likely to come into this side. How disruptive is it, though, bringing in, say, 8 changes?
It's disruptive in terms of probably getting your balance right. That's the biggest question for Michael Voss. All the names are great on paper, but you've got to get your balance right for who suits what role. But most of those will play, you'd think.
Okay, and the strength for Carlton?
The strength is the big boys, but it's also can be a weakness because they just bomb it to the big boys. So they've got to be careful of that. But why I think it's a strength for Carlton is I'm really worried about Joyce as the number 2, and even if he doesn't play, it's probably Payne who comes in, who's been underdone. So here are the big boys that their aerial skills are there for everyone to see. They can't, compete with each other. They've got to get separation. I'd even send Kemp to Andrews and play like Hoskin Elliott did on Harris Andrews. See if you can upset him as well. So if you'd upset Andrews...
Like a Frampton roll in the grand final.
Yeah. And so then it's a bit of a merry-go-round. What do they do? And then try and free up the other 2. So it could be a ploy for Carlton.
Damo, any pressure, do you think, on Charlie Curnow given his disappointing final series last year? I mean, he is coming off an injury.
Yeah, absolutely, Nat. I mean, again, it's hard to talk about and focus in that regard, but he let them down last year. It's on his head. It has been his all year. The only way to change it is to then get back to that same situation and perform, and that's what's on his head this week.
So you're looking outside of Charlie and Harry for your X factor.
Yeah.
Who you got?
Look, their season, the Blues went to mess when Tom de Koning went down, and if he's near fit, you just get him back in because it was this style of play which set their season up before it fell away again with injuries and unavailability, and he was one of those players in that category. But he's so important to them. He's an established AFL gun ruckman, and if he's right to go, just unleash him and just give him licence to roam.
Does Pitnet play if he plays?
No, I wouldn't. Yeah. No, because the numbers to me early in the season when they were going well said that didn't work. All right, tips. Lloydie, who are you tipping?
The Lions for me.
Yeah, Lions for me too.
I really want to tip the Blues, but I think it's going to be the Lions just. Okay. Trade talk. We are at that time of year. The silly season is upon us, Damo, and plenty of clubs need to make a crypto.com bold call. What have you got for us?
It was a really bold call to be made on Jake Stringer, Nat. The Bombers themselves have made a bold call of sorts already by telling him to go and explore the market because they're only going to offer him 1 year. And I agree with that, by the way. I think he let them down late in the season with inaccuracy and weight issues that were not acceptable to the club. So it's line ball whether he goes back to the Bombers. And I can tell you that a club of interest for his services is the Sydney Swans, who obviously are about to embark upon a final series where they start in pole position, number 1 on the ladder, but their forward line is a concern, and there's a conversation to be had once this season is complete about whether he does fit that mix. Would you be letting him go or keeping him?
Well, he's 40-odd goals he's kicked, and you just can't find those players too often. It wouldn't be the worst thing if he goes, and I'm sure they'll be fine without him, but for a slide like the Swans, it could be the difference again next year, and he could kick 50 goals up there at the SCG.
He's already been, once before in his career, a big-name player in the trade period, Nat. He's going to be talked about again in this trade period.
Well, someone who has been talked about ad nauseum is Christian Petracca, and the saga and the drama around this has continued. But over the weekend, there was a statement, Damo, that basically said, I am committed to the Melbourne Football Club. No trade. What are you thinking?
It was an exclusive statement by the Melbourne Footy Club. Who managed to track down Track Lotto, having not been able to speak to him and have any correspondence with him. Look, it's just been a mess. I still feel there could be an element of holding pattern on this until we get to the official part of the season when you can transact with players. And I know that that's only a long shot now given the strength of statement yesterday. But the growing up that needs to be done by Christian Petracca and other people around him and people at the Melbourne Footy Club to realise how problematic their operations are with their culture, which is at a messy stage at the moment, is something that if they don't take heat out of this whole experience, Lordo, the whole exercise has been a waste, and it's been an embarrassing waste to this point.
Yeah, that's what I'd use the word embarrass. It's been embarrassing for everyone. Like, it's been embarrassing for Melbourne, it's been embarrassing for Christian, even his management. I just think it hasn't been handled well at all. That's what I'd say. It's been a messy situation, an embarrassing situation for all of them.
Damo, do you think it's just an about face? Because, it seems like they're not going to be able to get a trade done. I mean, Carlton was thrown in there. Yeah. Fremantle has the early picks, but not keen on moving interstate. And somehow you've got to go back and repair with your teammates.
Yeah.
So is that part of it?
Well, again, Fremantle doesn't fit the brand Petracca. And this is his phrase, not anyone else's doing that. He's used the word brand himself about where he saw himself and how it didn't align with what Melbourne was doing to him as a brand. So he nominated Carlton, nominated Collingwood. They're the two big brands at the moment that he wants to go to. No interest in going to Richmond at the moment. They're a big brand, but they're not a good club at the moment. So he limited himself, and those clubs just cannot even open conversations of any nature meaningfully because of the currency required to get him back. I'm not even talking financial there, just the draft pick currency and player trade currency. So, no, it blew up in his face, this whole saga, and I just hope that he has finally got a chance to see reality through the whole thing, because I don't think he's had a lot of that. And I know that he's been seriously traumatised by the physical and mental toll on that King's birthday situation, which I always factor into the considerations. But he's tried to leave this club and he wasn't able to.
Well, I think we'll still be talking about this once the grand final is over and trade period actually officially kicks off. Thank you so much for watching Access All Areas. We'll be back again next Monday. Enjoy finals footy.
Want to get all the latest footy news in one hit? From injuries to breaking news, the latest from the coaches, the Footy Feed team has you covered. Watch it now on afl.com.au and the AFL Live app or wherever you get your podcasts.